Hey there, everyone, and welcome to episode 48 of the Halfway Through the Heat Wrestling Podcast, the world's greatest, most influential, most spectacular, and best recording quality of any wrestling podcast that is also a Trans-Pacific wrestling podcast on the internet. So, I am joined today by Tom, my co-host. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing good. How are things in Kawasaki
They
City?
are hot and humid, and I don't want to leave my house.
I am never going to get tired of saying the name Kawasaki City. It is one of the best names for a place in the world,
It's kind of a good place. It's not that bad a place to live either.
other than the heat and
Yeah,
humidity,
but
the
but
current
that's
heat and
that's
humidity.
all of Japan for basically all of the summer.
That's no good. I feel the same way. Whenever it's like disgustingly hot as it is here in Connecticut this week, I just don't want to do anything.
Yeah, I've got an air conditioned room and I'm not leaving it. That's my philosophy for when it's hot.
Amen.
So we've got some stuff to talk about. We've got some news about an update on Jerry Lawler and some Twitter chicanery and some more news about Cody Rhodes and who he'll be wrestling, and some other speculation about Moose. And then we've got some talk about TNA that's not a Death Watch related thing. And we'll talk about the best wrestling show we've ever been to live. So before that, we've got to go into what we would normally talk about right at the beginning of the episode. Something positive about Raw. So, Tom, what was your positive thing about Raw this week?
I like the development of the feud between AJ and the club and John Cena. I thought they handled that pretty well. I like the way the club was bullying John Cena, and then Enzo and Cass came to his aid. Um, I thought, right now it's funny. There's no title on the line in this or anything. In theory, it's a mid card feud, but it's like the only thing I'm really paying close attention to in WWE right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's not. It's the only thing that's got like a real kind of weight behind it.
Yep.
Though, to not to have the same thing as you, I'll say that the other thing that I enjoyed about Raw was the New Day and the Wyatt family things that they've been doing, the videos,
Oh
and
yeah,
like
yeah,
they came out all jokey, and then all of a sudden like it got real serious.
yeah. I kind of like how they. I thought they did that really well. It didn't seem too abrupt or anything. It seemed like it made sense. And I really like that for the feud because I don't think the I don't think that the Wyatt family works well as like jokey guys in a feud.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they should be jokey. I think they should just be like menacing weirdos.
Yeah, and this could go a long way to I think lengthening the life of the New Day team. Like they're great, but their time as like the comedy heels and now sort of comedy faces is kind of coming to an end. But if there's another side to them where they can be like really serious and gritty and have a match with these menacing weirdos, that could give them like a second wind.
Yeah, I agree. Though possibly it could mean the breakup of the New Day.
Yeah, that's true. I hope not. But yeah, I'm honestly intrigued to see where this goes, and I'm glad they're finally doing something with the Wyatt family. They've just I know they've had injuries, but they've really just been on ice for it feels like months now.
Yeah, it kind of sucked for them because they got injured at really bad times. Like remember there was that thing where right before Bray Wyatt got injured last time, he had a team up with Roman Reigns, and it was like a really kind of cool thing where like everyone was
It was
really
great.
excited that like possibly Bray Wyatt was going to be beating Roman Reigns, or like and then they had a team up, and then it was like I don't know, that was a really cool thing, and then Bray Wyatt got injured and it was dropped,
Yep.
which sucked because I think that would have been had they actually booked the Wyatt family to win something for once, it would have been kind of okay.
Yeah, and Luke Harper's been hurt too, and yeah, you're right. I mean, the timing has been off, but now it feels like maybe the stars are aligning. And honestly, the New Day is the kind of feud that makes sense for them. The New Day has a lot of heat with the crowd. People love the New Day. People have still maintained their affection for the Wyatt family despite terrible booking. This could really elevate both factions. I mean, I'm excited to see. Again, this could go horribly wrong, but right now it seems like they're playing just the right notes, and I'm excited to see them pull something off that would be impressive.
Yeah, I hope it is. I hope they shock the world, if you will. It's gonna be it could be an interesting feud, and I like that they're doing the videos for the video packages for it. It's pretty. It's
Yep.
like the old school Wyatt family videos where they're like a little bit more colorful and a little bit less like dude in a room talking to a chair.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, Honestly, the rest of Raw wasn't bad. I mean, it was another solid Raw. I saw people online saying it felt like it dragged, but it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's going to drag.
Like I couldn't imagine watching Raw not streamed, with commercials. And I've done that before. Like I've watched it. I usually watch it afterwards, like after there's like a no commercials version somewhere. But like, man, watching it with commercials, it would really drag. And only because like there'd be so many breaks. Whereas like when you watch it streaming, it's like 2 hours of just wrestling, and you're just like, oh, that feels all right, about right.
Yep.
And I think like that works. So I didn't feel it dragged at all, and there was some like good stuff in there. Like um, I thought like the Dolph Ziggler match with Seth Rollins was pretty good. Like I think
Yeah,
they
I agree.
they and I think like strangely enough, like the whole night the crowd was dead, but like there was a pretty good reaction for Dolph Ziggler. It was weird because like I like up until that match, like he probably got the best reaction from the crowd throughout the match.
Yeah, and I like the way they've kind of made Rollins, everything happening with Rollins being like a build up to Roman's return. The way that Rollins has been talking, he's been great on the mic since he's come back. Um, I think they're handling that really well too. And even though every match feels like it's an appetizer for Roman's return, they did a good job of making this one seem consequential.
Yeah, it was interesting. I liked that you're doing that, even though like I'm totally not interested in Roman's return.
It's going to be so good.
It might be. I don't know. It's going to be a three-way match, and you know how those usually end up.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, the one guy's gonna bump outside the ring and like play dead for 5 minutes and then get in. Another guy goes out. It's just three-way matches are three-way. A lot of things are it's more awkward and less fulfilling than they sound in theory.
That's true.
Um, all right, so Raw, not bad, some good stuff. Moving along to Battleground. We've got some news. Some good news on the legal front, which is rare for us to report. But Jerry Lawler, Jerry the King Lawler, has been reinstated effective immediately. He's supposed to be on, I believe, the next SmackDown because the domestic violence charges against him were dropped. We talked about these domestic violence charges, I think, 2 weeks ago. And at the time, we said it seemed like one of those things where the police come, and I don't know if Tennessee has one of these laws. A lot of states do. If there's a domestic violence call, the police have to arrest someone, and they arrested two people, Jerry Lawler and his girlfriend. And it seemed like one of those things where it was no one was seriously hurt, thank goodness. It just seemed like an argument that got really out of hand. Police were called, police make arrests just to be on the safe side. I'm glad that there wasn't really a serious thing happening, and I'm glad the charges have been dropped. Although, I don't know. I was never a huge fan of Lawler on commentary.
Yeah, that's that's the kind of thing that I'm not like, I'm not like a huge fan of Lawler on commentary, and like it's because he's like ridiculous. That's like the only real, thing I have with him. He's just like yelling about stupid shit all the time.
Yeah, and like it felt to me like an opportunity even though I wasn't a fan of it, but he had an obvious niche during the Attitude Era, and now he just seems kind of lost. And I was thinking this would be a good opportunity to get some new blood on color commentary, but that's apparently not going to happen.
Corey Graves, for example.
Corey Graves. So yeah. Anyway, also by the way, I when he got arrested, I said on the Closet of Anxiety blog, I was like, oh well, he's always wanted to be Jackie Fargo's protege, and I posted a news clip of when Jackie Fargo got arrested and charged with hitting his wife. Jackie Fargo, the charges were also dropped, so the parallels continue.
Perfect.
Speaking of legendary wrestlers, I was taken in by this. This was a hoax that I was taken in by. I not only retweeted this person, but I also posted a screenshot of a tweet on Closet of Anxiety, which I have since deleted. So for months, there was a Cynthia Heenan Twitter account. Cynthia Heenan being the wife of Bobby the Brain Heenan. And like when Bobby the Brain Heenan was in the hospital, the Cynthia Heenan Twitter account, which was verified, by the way, verified account with a blue check mark, was like responding to reporters' questions on Twitter. People were saying, Cynthia, how's Bobby? And their account would say, he's back at home. He's doing well. Thank you. Right? So last week, Twitter account at the real Bobby Heenan starts up, and people immediately ask the Cynthia account, hey, is this really Bobby? And she says yes. And within a couple of hours, the Bobby Heenan account has a blue check mark. And it was the kind of thing. It was the kind of a Twitter account that you would think an older man who had never been really an internet person would use, like just responding to questions and some of the Bobby Heenan humor and saying nice things about people and saying nice things about Gorilla Monsoon and it seemed plausible. This was Bobby the Brain Heenan. Also, it was verified. So Saturday is like 2 days after this thing gets verified, Mick Foley starts tweeting that this is a hoax, that he's been in contact with the actual Cynthia Heenan, and she's not on Twitter, and Bobby's not on Twitter. So then everyone starts getting involved. Ryan Satin at Pro Wrestling Sheet starts looking into it. He thinks that it might be someone who did a Bobby the Brain Heenan parody account. At any rate, within a couple hours, both accounts are pulled down. But not after, like Kevin Owens was interacting with Bobby the Brain Heenan, like Jim Ross, all these people were taken in by it, and me. I'm not.
I actually, I probably would have followed that account had I used Twitter more, but I don't open Twitter all that often. I open it like every couple of days, and I got a notification actually one day that said that you and Kevin Owens and like some other people were now following the real Bobby the Brain Heenan. I was like, put a mental note in the back of my head, like, oh, okay, next time I use Twitter, I should follow that account. But
yeah, and it was not an obvious fake at all. And so I have a lot of questions about this. My first question is, I guess the first question really is how do you get 2 fake Twitter accounts verified? Because people are always complaining on Twitter about how hard it is to get the blue check mark. And you'll see people with like 20,000 followers, and they have some kind of media job or something. They're like, I can't get verified. But 2 hoax Twitter accounts get verified. That's impressive. How did that happen? And Ryan Satin tweeted at Twitter, at support or whatever, and was trying to get answers to that. But, Bobby Heenan is not prominent enough in the mainstream media for reporters at BuzzFeed or something to get into it. So we probably we'll never know. But the other thing is, what kind of weirdo creates a Cynthia Heenan parody Twitter account? Well, so there are a lot of people who impersonate wrestlers online, and generally they note that this is a role play account, an RP account, right? Whatever. If you're not hurting people, that's fine. Whatever floats your boat. There's a weird underworld, and there's a subset of the RP accounts. It's just about what if the wrestlers were really horny. That's even weirder.
I assume most of those are Dean Ambrose accounts.
There's a lot, yeah, but there's other weird ones too. There's Dana Brooke and I mean, all the members of the Shield, absolutely. But there's it's well anyway. It's a troubling underworld. But like this was not that. This was not an obvious parody. This wasn't like jokes. This wasn't like playing a character. Well, I mean, it was, but it wasn't clear what the purpose was. It really was convincingly an older woman's Twitter account who was married to Bobby Heenan, and for months. Who does that? What was the grand plan? Like, what do you get out of it? There was no like money making. At least that might have been step 3. I don't know, but it like for what purpose? Why? I don't understand.
Yeah, that's
I'm left with a
it's
lot of
really
questions.
weird. I mean, I guess I don't know. It just seems like uh, a really strange thing to do. And the question of like how do you get verified is also a weird one. Like who knows? Who knows how that happens? Maybe there's like some kind of metric that they use to determine like your famousness or whatever. So like maybe it's not based on followers alone. Like like you're saying, like you have 20,000 subscribers or followers or whatever, but like you can't get verified. Not you specifically, but someone. But like,
I remember when I had a coworker who used to be a reporter at the state's largest newspaper, and someone was impersonating her on Twitter, and she was trying to get the impersonation, get the fake account taken down, and she had to send them like scans of her driver's license, and she had to like produce these documents to prove that she was who she said she was. I don't understand. Like, how do you get verified if you don't? I mean, they must ask for some kind of proof of identity for verification, right?
you'd assume, but I guess you can't really you don't really know there.
I really hope the weirdo who did this comes forward and explains because I'm curious and I want to find out what I mostly I want to know how they got verified, but I mostly want to know like what was the motivation behind it? Did it just start out like it's one thing to start a Bobby Heenan account and people take it to be the real thing and then you just go with it, but he or she started with the Cynthia Heenan account. Like most people don't even know what Bobby Heenan's wife's name is, let alone know enough to kind of somewhat convincingly impersonate his wife. That's weird.
That is weird.
The obvious thing you'd think would be to start with Bobby Heenan. But maybe they started with, I don't know, Cynthia Heenan. They got away with it for so long. And I don't know. There was a similar story Kevin Owens told about Davey Richards from the American Wolves, or I guess the Wolves now. He had a Twitter account, but then he like just stopped doing it or maybe deleted it, and someone else started a Twitter account with the same handle. Like I guess he had he deleted his account or something, and like months later somebody just picked up that handle and was impersonating him. And because it was the same handle and the person was kind of convincingly Davey Richards, like other wrestlers thought it was still him, but whoever was doing it was apparently something of like a subtle comic genius because one of the things they did was they presented the idea that Davey Richards was like a huge fan of Kane. So they're just like be these tweets like I'm sitting here watching Raw and I'm so excited to see Kane. And then like I guess a couple people and like other wrestlers would say things to him like, "So you really like Kane, huh?" And he was like, well, "I don't know what." And I guess this went on, not just Kane but other references. Like the guy who was the fake Dave, like the person impersonating Davey Richards, would start like getting into Twitter conversations with wrestlers who were really Davey Richards' friends. And they would like reference the conversation to him, like, the next time they saw him, and he'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
That's awesome.
The internet is weird. The internet's weird. But yeah, somebody did a fake Bobby and Cynthia Heenan Twitter account. The only good thing to come of it for me, anyway, is that I was scanning some pictures of Bobby Heenan in his AWA days because thinking of Bobby made me want to go back and look at some of his stuff. He was amazing, just an amazing performer. And he's not doing well health wise. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Those fun memories. And I mean, to me, he's almost as big a part of the '80s WWF as like Hogan. Like I have just as many memories of Bobby Heenan as I do of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he was like everywhere in the '80s WWF. He managed like half the wrestlers.
Yeah, he was like the main heel, really. Because whatever wrestler he happened to be managing would then be like the guy taking on the good guys. But like, really, Heenan was sort of the if you will, the brain behind like all the bad guys. So I mean, it was, with the exception of Piper, Heenan was sort of the bad guy, and he was so great on commentary. He was such a great manager. He was even a good wrestler. He could do it all. There's not many people you can say that about.
It's true. He was he was one of the best. That's like I mean, it's pretty easy to say that because he was all over the place too. He wasn't not only was he like the biggest manager, but he was like on commentary and he was like did that with Gorilla Monsoon, and then he did that like host
The
yeah, the
talk show,
talk show
yeah,
thing,
yeah,
and he did like and occasionally he'd be involved in matches. um
yeah. And it's funny because you and I remember him from the '80s, so we talk to younger wrestling fans or whatever, and they don't have those memories. But for you and I, we don't have memories of him when he was in the '70s in AWA, and was such an insane heat magnet that somebody literally tried to murder him at a wrestling event.
yeah, that's imagine like Seth Rollins getting the crowd so angry that someone tried to shoot him.
Seriously, yeah, yeah. Like it, and he people just hated him. He was really something else. I mean, we can read about it obviously, but there's so little footage of that time that exists, unfortunately, that it's hard to really get a sense of what it was. But I mean, again, you can Google it. I mean, like, a guy brought a gun to a show in Chicago, at the old Chicago Stadium where the Bulls and the Blackhawks played, and like started shooting at Bobby Heenan and Nick Bockwinkel. Crazy. Um, oh well, hey, breaking news. See, we record these when Impact is on, and Eddie Edwards he's the new X Division champion. So congratulations, Eddie.
Well, I mean, technically TNA is pre-recorded, so everybody already knows
That's
this
right. Yeah, he
stuff.
became the yeah.
Everybody who checked
It,
the spoilers like 3 weeks ago totally knows this.
I'm following I'm following the TNA on Twitter because I want to know when Final Deletion starts, which we'll talk about later in the podcast. But we have some more news. Um, Cody Rhodes, his first post WWE matches have been set. Oh, also, he's going to be in the next season of the Green Arrow show, which I think is just called Arrow.
Arrow.
But
I'm.
for those of us who grew up reading the gritty Green Arrow comics, he'll always be Green Arrow.
That's true. I don't know. Maybe Arrow is even more gritty now. Who knows?
He might be. Is there still a role for Roy Harper, aka Speedy,
Pro-
the sidekick who was on heroin?
Maybe. I see. I've never watched Arrow, so I don't know
Me
how
neither.
compared. I haven't read like any Green Arrow comics in like 20 plus years. So
Yeah, no, yeah, same here. Same. I have no idea. I have
so
no
it
idea
could be
what.
it could be way worse. Speedy could be all types of stuff now.
Yeah, the show's mostly about Speedy's problems with addictions. It's really grim. Um, but anyway, so Cody Rhodes, in addition to his acting gig, his first post WWE match has been set for Friday, August 19 in beautiful Joppa, Maryland. It's going to be Evolve 66. He'll be wrestling Zack Sabre Jr., who seems to be basically everywhere these days.
Yeah, geez, he is everywhere.
That'll be interesting. It'll be funny because Zack Sabre Jr. will have wrestled more recently in the WWE than Cody Rhodes, as Zack Sabre Jr. will be in the Cruiserweight tournament.
When does that start being shown?
The 13th
Okay.
of this month, I believe.
That's just next week.
Next week. So that'll be good. It's hard. I mean, Zack Sabre Jr. can get a good match out of anyone. Cody Rhodes a good wrestler. Then the very next day, Saturday, August 20, which is SummerSlam weekend, Evolve 67 in Brooklyn, New York. Cody Rhodes will be wrestling Chris Hero. That's an afternoon show because they don't want to compete with the NXT Takeover Brooklyn show, which is Saturday night.
Ah, makes sense.
It does make sense, especially because they're sort of arm in arm with WWE. So they coordinate these things. Um, but yeah, so that'll be interesting. I mean, you can hardly at this point start with bigger opponents in the Indies than Chris Hero and Zack Sabre Jr. So this will be a real test to see if Cody has what it takes. Then after that, after Evolve, he's going to be in Bola.
Oh yeah, that's true. I wonder who. Oh wait, I'm thinking of something else. I was gonna say I wonder who his tag team partner will be, but that's something else.
That's something
That's
else.
the thing that Chikara does, the trios.
Yeah, the King of Trios thing. Then he'll be back in the East Coast. I'll be seeing him on August 28th. I think he's wrestling Jushin Liger. He's on a show with Jushin Liger. Um, but anyway, Cody Rhodes is a busy dude. Um, and speaking of busy dudes, Moose, his contract with ROH is up, and he is, according to Pro Wrestling Sheet, Ryan Satin, and Pro Wrestling Sheet actually does real reporting, so their word can be trusted. He is fielding offers from Ring of Honor, from TNA, and from AAA, which likely means Lucha Underground.
Those are all good.
Uh,
Um,
I'm surprised WWE's not in the mix.
yeah, I'm sort of surprised, but like previously I've said like, what is he gonna do in WWE? Like, I
True.
mean, I've mentioned that before, but like, you know, if he comes into WWE, like you know that he's just gonna get stuck in a tag team with Apollo Crews for the rest of his days.
That's right. The not ready for prime time players or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's what they'll be. they'll they'll be the primetime players too.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think WWE would have much for him. But of those three, Ring of Honor, TNA, and Lucha Underground slash AAA, which one do you think is the best fit for Moose?
Um, he like I want to say Ring of Honor is like the best bet. Just stay with Ring of Honor, but like again, like we talked about last week, you know, Ring of Honor is so stagnant at the moment. It's just the same
Yeah,
pool of guys fighting the same pool of guys over and over and over. And it's just kind of there's not any real new matchups in Ring of Honor for Moose, and I think he's like kind of hit the ceiling of how high he's going to go in Ring of Honor.
I agree, and I wonder if that's kind of what he was thinking, that he sort of he reached kind of a plateau, and they didn't have anything more for him, and you realize sooner or later, okay, this is what I'm doing in Ring of Honor. I should, I got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, so I could see him going somewhere else. I could see him going somewhere else like Lucha Underground and then coming back to Ring of Honor. Like that would probably be a good bet for him actually.
Yeah, honestly, I think of those three, AAA slash Lucha Underground, if there is in fact a season four, which I hope there will be, um, that would be the best fit for him. He could kind of come up with a sort of a different character or a different side to his character, and he'd be going against really high profile people, have a lot of exciting matches. TNA is such a crapshoot. I mean, honestly, some of the wrestling in TNA has been pretty good. The last, I don't know, 6 months or so, they haven't been bad, but it's like exposure wise, it's basically the same as Ring of Honor, and you never know when things are going to veer off into a horrible, disastrous direction.
Yeah, it's strange because there are a lot of interesting things going on in TNA, and the wrestling is good. It's just like you, like you can't think about TNA without feeling like on shaky ground at all times. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
like how we're waiting for the other shoe to drop for Raw, so to turn back to garbage. TNA
right.
is like you're always. I got the feeling the second shoe is already dropped, and you're just waiting for it to hit the ground.
It's true. Honestly, I think I know, I mean, like, completely irrespective of whatever financial issues they have, I feel like they do a million times better if they just change their name. Just the name just conjures up nothing but like images of like this third rate circus.
Yeah, That that's really true, and I mean, I think they realize that they try to get away from it. I mean, they didn't
Yeah, they're
change.
trying to promote like Impact Wrestling as their
Yeah,
brand, but yeah, I don't know. I I hope Moose wherever he lands, I hope he lands somewhere he's happy. He's a lot of fun to watch.
yeah. Well, like,
Um,
not being a Ring of Honor takes away from the Moose chant in the beginning, unless he somehow keeps the name Moose.
I hope so. Yeah, I imagine you can't copyright the name Moose, considering it's the name of an animal. But I'm no copyright law expert. You want to consult an attorney for that.
I guess that's true. So tough luck, TNA. You're gonna have to actually consult an attorney.
That's right. Um, all right. So since we've been talking about TNA, let's go right into considering hashtag final deletion, which, as we're recording, is yet to happen. When you listen to this, it will have happened. I mean, it actually already happened. They taped it already
Yeah,
in beautiful Cameron, North Carolina. But
this is
the
yeah,
world
this is one of the
won't get a
things
chance
that
to see
can't
it.
be spoiled. I think because like it's not taped with an audience.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's literally like on at Matt Hardy's house. And if you've seen, so Final Deletion is the battle between Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy. We've talked about this, the sort of like bizarre turn that Matt Hardy's character has taken, where he's become this kind of like weird fake Shakespearean character. He even speaks in what I think is supposed to be a British accent.
I don't know.
It's hard to say
It's
what he's
it's
speaking.
like it's like that Hollywood faux historical accent.
Yeah, exactly, but like a bad version
Yeah,
of it. Um,
it's the
and
West Virginia version of it, if you will.
Yeah, so he and Jeff Hardy had a hilarious like contract signing vignette that involved a fake baby being thrown and other things. And now they're setting up this match, and we posted on Closet of Anxiety. There's a teaser that TNA put out for this match called Final Deletion, which takes place in a backyard, and like it's like literally like Jeff Hardy is doing swanton bombs off of trees. They're fighting in a pond. They're shooting fireworks at each other. It looks to be the most ridiculous match broadcast on cable, certainly.
This
And
is great because remember last week when I was saying like what is the what does that even mean? Are they going to be wrestling in a backyard? They actually are wrestling in a backyard.
they actually are wrestling in a backyard. And the clip starts off like Matt Hardy has this like manservant called Senior Benjamin, and Matt Hardy says to him, "Prepare the battlefield for massacre." But his accent is actually worse than that, if you can imagine.
So great.
Um,
It's so
and
stupid, but it's so good.
it's so stupid, but it's actually been getting them like a lot of like viral attention. People have been like retweeting it and talking about it. Matt Hardy was on TMZ today talking about it, but like totally in character. And so all he just kept saying was delete, delete, delete. And they were like, okay, thanks. Um, so he's it's we're not gonna. I mean, like by the time this is broadcast, people will have seen it and absorbed the full lunacy of the Final Deletion. But what I want to talk about is like because this is getting some buzz for TNA. Um, what does this mean? Is this good or bad? So, and I'll give you an example. Will Ospreay used this as an example of why he did not sign with TNA. He told the Wrestling Compadres Slamcast, "We need a Slamcast. We're still stuck with a podcast.
We can change
Um,
the name to Slamcast if you want, Tom.
only if we're slamming."
Oh, we're
Anyway,
definitely slamming.
we're definitely slamming. Will Ospreay told the Wrestling Compadres Slamcast, quote, "I just did not want to be with TNA because for me personally, especially with the recent video that the Hardys released, it's not me shooting, but I just don't like it. I think it was so bad." And on the other hand, there's been a ton of sort of like mainstream-ish, or at least people who don't normally watch TNA have kind of perked up. Like Jim Ross is tweeting that he's like, "I can't wait for Final Deletion tonight." Uh, Tumblr haired weirdo Max Landis, who did wrestling, isn't wrestling, and is like a WWE consultant. He posted a video raving about how great this thing is, and he's really excited about it. And there's been some speculation that the angle was part of the inspiration for the WWE's program between New Day and the Wyatt family, with Bray inviting the New Day down to the compound in Swampland or whatever. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, is the whole like so bad it's good? Is this something that is going to inspire more? Is this something that should inspire more? Should wrestling, to try to capture a bigger audience, think about like, let's deliberately be campy?
Um, there's a market for it. Like, you know,
There is.
basically that's like all of DDT wrestling. It's goofy like that. It's like every match is a comedy match.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I think like not that this is a comedy match though. It's not really. I mean, it's like it's less of a comedy match and more of like a B grade horror match.
Yeah. It's really, it's like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, but as a wrestling
Yeah,
match.
it's it's really strange and it's different and it's interesting. It's got people talking about it. Like it's all of those things are positive. So like you
Yeah.
can't like you can't really complain about it. I mean, not everybody is going to like it obviously, but like there are going to be people who like it and because it's so different, at least it gives those people who aren't going to be seeing stuff like that an option. It might get people to actually start watching TNA. I bet you their ratings are probably going to be pretty up for this.
Yeah. And I kind of hope that, I mean, they taped this, as you said, a while ago, but I kind of hope that the show, like, it looks like they started with an X Division match, which is good, but like they have more eyeballs on the show tonight. I kind of hope that the rest of the show lives up to it, so that people who are just tuning in for the car crash of Final Deletion will see a bunch of stuff that makes them say, "Oh, hey, this is pretty cool. Maybe I'll," even if it's not mainstream people, maybe if it's just like WWE fans or wrestling fans in general who have kind of given up on TNA, if they tune in tonight and see a bunch of good stuff, maybe they'll say, "Excellent, I'll check back again." I hope so, because there are really good wrestlers in TNA, and they do have some good stuff going on. It's just they're just struggling under the weight of all the suck that's accumulated over the years, and they still have a lot of stuff they should not be doing. Dixie Carter, 100% should not be on TV, and is on TV every week.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's totally like a Dixie Carter thing. It's just like she refuses to go. But I think like they don't do I think like their reputation as being absolutely horrible is not exactly warranted at this point because like it's not like there's shitty wrestling on the show. I mean there's some, but like it's not constant. It's not every match is bad. There's actually some pretty good matches, and their tag teams matches have been better than WWE's tag team matches.
Yep.
So, I can't really complain about that. So, it's not like a terrible product or anything. It's just terrible when in the overall like I don't execution of it. You know what I mean? Like the the kind of general feel of it is just like a Me Too for like a WWE Me Too kind of thing. And like
Yes.
that's the feel. And it's not necessarily what's being presented. It's just like the overall feel of it is still that. And that if this helps them break away from that, then like, oh, well, that's actually a good thing. Because this isn't really like anything WWE is doing.
Right. Yeah, and I agree 100%. For too long, they felt like a WCW light. And then they have felt for a while like a Me Too with the WWE. And this is like, for the first time in a long time, they've really felt like they're building their own identity.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good angle altogether. I mean, yeah, is Will Ospreay right? Yeah, he's right. It's stupid, but like it's stupid in a way that's entertaining, and like, I mean, if I look up from where I'm sitting right now and I see like this wall of DVDs I have, like basically half the DVDs I have are stupid but fun. Like stupid, but I want to watch them. Like that's how imagine like, Full Moon Entertainment's been like making movies for like 30 years.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if you're like a movie studio that can last 30 years by making movies like Puppet Master and Demonic Toys and Ginger Dead Man, you're you've got an audience. So maybe that kind of stupid but entertaining thing is, marketable, sellable. And it seems that way because, like we said, lots of people are talking about it. There's not a small amount of people who are just like suddenly interested. It's actually a lot of people and bigger people, bigger name people. Chris Jericho was talking about it on his podcast. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think you can use it sparingly. Like the whole show cannot be like weird, over the top, campy comedy. But if you have something like this to bring people in, then you can showcase what else you have.
yeah, I mean, technically, Lucha Underground is kind of like that. It's not comedy, but like it is kind of a weird, over the top um, wrestling show. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the format for Lucha Underground.
Yeah, exactly. And the only thing I worry about is like, because wrestling promotions have a way of like beating a good thing into the ground until it's really not a good thing. My only worry is that right now in Nashville, in a Waffle House in Nashville, which serves as the TNA offices, they are like sitting around thinking about how they can make like Final Deletion 2 finaler deletion. Like, how do we top this? And that to me is not the avenue. The avenue is to like occasionally have sensational things, and to give them credit, when people started like reacting to the original like vignette with Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy and the fake baby, TNA like immediately jumped on it and started pushing it on social media and like really did exactly what you should do. But the avenue to like proceed here is not to just try to like redo this 100 times.
Yeah, I mean, doing weird stuff is probably okay, but like not the same thing. Like you said, don't do Final Deletion 2. We don't need that.
We don't need that. Um, just looking at the TNA, it has not started right now. Jade, aka Mia Yim, and Marty Bell, aka Marty Bell, are in a street fight. But Final Deletion has not begun.
There's been no start of the Final Deletion.
It is still a street fight. Um, yeah. So I think overall it's a good thing. Final Deletion, as long as they don't, as long as in 6 months we're not talking about Final Deletion 5 and how stupid this idea is and how they have to stop it.
Yeah. I think I'm interested to hear what everybody has to say about it. So like if you have any reactions to Final Deletion, or if this is the first time you're hearing about Final Deletion, you think you want to check it out, you probably should because it's kind of all over the internet though. I mean, you can see those Jeff Hardy promo videos.
Yeah, it's definitely worth like watching this stuff because I mean it is bizarre. It's definitely a
It's like a five
spectacle.
minute video of Jeff Hardy making faces, pained faces at the camera. That's it.
Oh no,
Oh, that's
that's
Matt
Matt
Hardy.
Hardy.
Matt
That's
Hardy.
Broken. Yeah. Yeah, Brother Nero he's like the normal one. When Jeff Hardy is the normal one in an angle, that's when you know you've gone way over the top.
Yes, perfect. Uh, so what do we got next? We've got the best wrestling show you've ever been to live.
What? So this was prompted because someone I follow on Twitter who also follows me, Bay Nakano is the handle. She's like a Beyond Wrestling regular, and she was tweeting about her favorite show, which is a Beyond Wrestling show because the Battle of New England returns, which I also attended. It was a good show. And I was thinking about like what makes a favorite show? It's not just the wrestling, obviously. It's like the whole experience. Um, And I was trying to think. I mean, I probably, I don't know. Like lists are weird things. I probably don't have like an absolute favorite, but I was trying to think about some of the bigger highlights. And obviously the big factor for me is like who you go to a show with.
That's true. That really does affect how good the show is.
Yeah, and we used to have a crew of guys we would go to shows with, and they were like they were the loud guys, and it was the most fun to go with those guys because they always had a lot of fun at the shows, regardless of whether we were seeing something really good or something really bad. But sometimes it was just like me, you, and maybe one other guy, Jay,
Yeah.
who later became a wrestler. Um, and still it was fun. But we went to a lot of ECW shows, and honestly, the one that stands out for me is the New Jack
Oh
one.
yeah. I mean, I'd have to pick that one only because like not only was it a really good show, but it had like, the crazy spot where New Jack broke his neck and it's got so much that had I mean, that had the Dusty Rhodes and Steve Corino battle
Yep,
into the crowd. People got sprayed with blood.
people, right behind us, people got sprayed with blood.
Yes. Very good. That was good stuff. Um but we went to a lot of ECW shows, but that one really stands out in my memory. Um, because overall it was just a really good show.
Yeah, and it's been a story that I've told people ever since. Uh, People who don't know anything about wrestling, I always tell the story of New Jack's and the sickest bump ever. It was insane. I mean, like to this day, like at the time, like none of us, everyone knew, like pretty soon, everyone knew there was an injury, but nobody knew how bad it was at the time. And now looking back, I'm horrified by it. But it's, he's still going, and it's definitely a memory that stands out, and that's kind of what you want at shows. Because now, really, honestly, at indie shows, like the better quality indies, you're going to see good wrestling no matter what. And like good matches after a while start to blend into each other if there's not like a storyline connecting them. That's why the Dusty Rhodes Steve Corino thing was good because like it seemed like these guys, again, it was all storyline, but you could believe these guys legitimately disliked each other.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think that was like a lot of what ECW did really well was that making you care about all of the people in the storyline. And like it was the kind of thing where like, you know, no one was gonna like someone like Chris Chetty, but like ECW made you like him.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
no
100%.
one was gonna be like super hyped about Roadkill, but like, suddenly you like him because ECW made you care about him. And like that's what they did really well was that making you care about the wrestlers and their storylines and like what they were doing in the ring and like they did it in like a really organic way. So like it wasn't always like they were feeding you a story and it was like segmented or anything. Sometimes they would bleed over into each other. And like matches would happen that way. The matches would kind of bleed into each other like organically where like somebody would come out and then like suddenly there was a match, like an unscheduled match where like other people would come out and then suddenly we're in the middle of a match. And then suddenly it's a feud.
Yeah. I mean, it was so much fun, and they really. It's fun to go back because ECW, that people at the time called it like the big three: WWF, WCW, and ECW. It was really like the big two and a half. ECW was never quite. ECW was always just like a giant indie. But it's amazing to go back and look at some of those draws where they could be in Los Angeles, which was way out of their normal area, and they could draw 5,000 plus people to a show with like Nova and Chris Chetty, and like towards the end, it was such a tribute to like Paul Heyman's booking genius that he had this kind of like his whole meal. It was like a gourmet meal put together with like leftovers, and that's not a slam on the wrestlers, but they were all a lot of at that by that point there were a lot of like young guys, not big stars. Their big stars had all departed for WCW and WWF, but because of the quality of how Heyman put shows together, you just went because it said ECW on the poster. Like whatever you're going to see, CW Anderson, Chris Hamrick, didn't matter. It was going to be a good show.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing like you know the people that it was like it was like the Bad News Bears. Like it was just like this ragtag bunch of people at the end where it was just like who was the champion then? Rhino?
Yeah, Rhino, just incredible. It was just sort of like guys who were not, but like all the champions felt like transitional
Yeah,
champions.
because there was just nobody, no, like seriously, like think of the people who got way over in ECW and how they didn't get way over in all the other places they went. Like um Shane Douglas. Like
Yeah. Oh my
I
God. Yeah.
mean Shane Douglas, like think of just Incredible, Rhino, all of those guys, but like think of like Sandman. Um
Yeah. Sandman.
Sandman like he went to WCW and like basically was just gone. Like he was there doing nothing basically.
He was Hack.
Yeah.
Remember that?
How awful
Hack.
was that?
It was so bad.
And some people did like a lot of people did all right, but like think of like the difference between WWE Taz and ECW Taz. Like there's,
Oh
I
my
mean,
God. Yeah.
think about that because like in ECW Taz was like the human suplex machine. He was terrifying. And like in WWE, he was just like little guy Taz.
Yeah. And I mean, Paul Heyman did such a good job of booking around people's weaknesses. Taz was a small guy, or I mean, he was a short guy. He was obviously like a thick, but like Heyman figured out a way to like use that to his advantage. Taz's whole thing is he never left his feet. He just threw people and choked them. And like think about the Public Enemy. Remember, they went to WCW, but like think about how big they were in ECW, and they were just these two like journeyman wrestlers who had never really been particularly special anywhere else. Paul Heyman came up with this gimmick for them. They really put their hearts into it and sold it, and they were so popular in ECW. I mean, they were like the big draw in the early years, the Public Enemy, and then like they went to WCW and were pretty quickly revealed to be kind of like sort of like a knockoff version of the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, and they went to WWE, right, and just got destroyed after they were there for like
Yeah,
a
exactly.
month.
Yeah, and some of the guys from ECW went on to be big stars, obviously.
Yeah, RVD was the champion of WWE at one point.
Yeah, yeah, and like Jericho and Malenko and Guerrero and Benoit and like a lot of people came up through ECW who went on to be big
Steve Austin
stars.
was there.
Steve Austin was Steve Austin when he first started doing those crazy promos, which really revealed his talents as a guy on the mic. Mick Foley, after WCW fired him, he reinvented himself in ECW. So like big stars, but a lot of those guys like it was just an ECW thing, and it was really revealed the genius of Paul Heyman. But because of that continuity, I don't think I ever saw a bad ECW show in
Yeah,
person.
it was the kind of thing where like ECW could get over people you'd never heard of. You know what I mean? Like when went to a show and like some no-name guy came out, you didn't ever think like, oh, this guy's gonna lose because like you
Right.
really didn't know. So like, it was the kind of thing where like, someone like Mike Awesome comes out and you're just like, who is this mulleted jackass? Like this guy
Yeah.
is gonna be awful. And then like he comes out and he has like, like 5-star match with Masato Tanaka, and you're like, holy shit.
I I will say though, like I don't know that I've ever seen a great Mike Awesome match with someone who wasn't either Masato Tanaka or Little Spike Dudley.
Yeah, that's kind of true, but like the thing with it is not that it's just like Mike Awesome was in ECW doing his thing, and like then afterwards he went to WCW and was like the Disco
Oh
Machine
God.
Mike Awesome or whatever
Oh
that
God.
70s guy or whatever Mike Awesome.
That 70s guy, they used him so badly. Oh my God. Yeah, again, he was like booked as this monster, this unstoppable, huge guy in ECW, again, that was Heyman's understanding, like what people were going to react to. I mean, like Danny Doring and Roadkill,
Yeah,
they got over as a tag team in ECW,
yeah.
and they
Imagine
were,
like imagine stuff like the Blue World Order and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like all of that kind of stuff would not get over anywhere but ECW. And like it's just kind of like a testament to how well ECW was put together. And like that like the being one of the best live wrestling shows I've ever been to being ECW, that is not a surprise because like not only like was the wrestling good, but you know what's happening gets you really invested, and then like the crowd is also invested. So like it's nuts. Like everybody is all together into this, and everybody's really into it. So like, one thing you can say about going to an ECW show that you can't say about other wrestling shows is that like the crowd is always into everything that's happening. Like
Yeah.
there's not a point where the crowd is dead.
Wrestling crowds are always very important to wrestling, but ECW was the first, I think, like self-aware crowd where you had like people are still 20 years later, 20 plus years later, people are still doing ECW crowd chants. Like if you went to, NWA shows or AWA shows back in the day, the crowd was important, but nobody was chanting "Holy shit" after a great move. The ECW crowd was like a different thing. It really felt like you were part of this, and part of it too was this idea, this kind of scrappy defiance of WWF and WCW. Like this is the real shit. Like those guys are show business, and we're like professional wrestling the way it's supposed to be, which was kind of delusional in a lot of ways, obviously. But that self belief in the crowd really made them invested in the show in a way that I don't even think you find in the indies anymore.
Yeah, it's
Like I don't think there's not that like in the indies everyone wants to work for WWE. It's not that sense of like fuck you, we're going to do something better than you.
Yeah, that's the difference between current indies and ECW is that like ECW is not about like we're gonna make this thing so you guys can go to something bigger. Is like we're gonna make this thing and we're gonna make it better than all those other places, regardless of like how many people come or regardless of how much attention we're getting. We're just gonna be better at what we do for who comes to it, and it's like a very kind of kind of a punk rock kind of attitude.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And again, it was like Heyman had worked for WCW, he'd worked for AWA. He kind of knew his way around this stuff, and he had seen the other side of it and was sick of it, and he just made a promotion based on what he wanted to do. And I mean, and again, I don't want to be one of those people who's like, oh, it was better in the old days, but it was different in a way that you can find better wrestling. Like on indie supercards, you're going to find like wrestlers who have more star quality today than a lot of those ECW shows at the end, right? Where you had guys like C.W. Anderson and Danny Doring and, who were fine, but, PWG has a show that from pillar to post has better wrestlers who have like sort of more charisma, right? But there's not the same kind of sense of like the crowd doesn't feel like it's part of this sort of like movement. It doesn't feel like it's part of a tribe. And the other thing that Heyman did that was so good is like the storylines really made sense. A lot of matches, and we've talked about this before, but a lot of matches at indie shows now, everything feels like an exhibition. Like there's no real reason these guys are fighting except that they're scheduled to fight
Yeah,
each
that's like
other.
Evolve basically.
Yeah, exactly. And what I like about wrestling is when wrestling is at its best, it's because there's some kind of emotion behind it. You really want to you want to believe these guys hate each other so much they want to hurt each other. Think about the famous Magnum TA Tully Blanchard I Quit match from Starrcade '85. Insanely bloody, insanely brutal, and like a just and after it came after like a year of these guys feuding, it really felt like these two guys absolutely detested each other, and that made it so much better than just two guys beating each other up in a ring. ECW did that really well, even with kind of like minor players and minor storylines. They always had a reason. The whole Raven Tommy Dreamer thing, neither one of those guys is a wrestler whose work I love just in pure wrestling terms. Like they were both brawlers.
Yeah, it's not
Like,
you're not exactly going to get like a stupendous match from those two.
no, but their rivalry was so good you cared about their matches because the story that Heyman created, and both those guys obviously, I mean, they're the most important ones here. Like they sold it so well. But the idea that these two guys had known each other since high school, and Tommy Dreamer's the clean cut one, and Raven was like the burnout, and they hate each other, like that made the matches so much more interesting. Like this idea that there's this personal grudge and they're just going to beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah. I
That was
mean,
a
like there was other stuff with that too, like not in that specific feud, but like ECW did all types of feuds like that where like um remember Rhino gored somebody's wife through a table or something? Like that kind
yes,
of stuff, like that's the kind of thing where like you know, you can totally understand that guy wants to kill the other guy now.
right.
They crucified Sandman, right?
Sandman, that's right. Yeah, maybe going a little too far.
I mean, there's lots of things going on in ECW that were like a little you know, edgy for real.
Yeah, they really pushed the envelope. The crucifixion show is Kurt Angle had just won a gold medal, and they invited him there to like because Paul Heyman was going to try to get Kurt Angle to wrestle, and Angle, who's I guess devoutly religious, was so upset that not only did he leave, but that he told Paul Heyman that if Heyman told anyone he was there, Kurt Angle would sue him.
That's awesome. I love that story because like it's the funniest thing. Like I could see like Paul Heyman totally knew that was going to happen, but like didn't realize Kurt Angle would be offended. And then
Right.
afterwards, he's just like, I didn't know it was going to happen tonight. I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's a very Paul Heyman thing. Like, if you've ever heard if you hear other people talk about Paul Heyman during ECW, it's just like he's constantly running like a cup game where where like he's,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
he's constantly shifting around like what what you're looking for. So like, if you're like, well, Paul, where's my money? He'll be like, oh yeah, it's over here and here, and I'll get it to you then. And then like he won't call you for 3 weeks, and then and then he'll have the money. But like it'll be the kind of thing where like he's constantly like playing this like wrestling kind of sleazy promoter thing. Or and it wasn't that he was sleazy. It's just like, I don't think he was actively trying to rip people off or anything. I just think like, you know, that
No, I agree, but it just felt like everything was done by the seat of
yeah,
his
exactly.
pants.
So like everything is it's not like he had an accounting department. I mean, I think he did
Right.
actually, but it was like in his basement at his house and it was his mother.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's really I mean it's there's nothing gonna be quite like it today. But the question of best show ever, I was over the weekend I got a chance to watch a Beyond show called Greatest Rivals Round Robin from last September with my friends Mark and Mike, and that was Biff Busick's last show before going to NXT, and that honestly I think from like post ECW era is my favorite show, just because there was a story there. Like this was a guy everyone knew he was leaving. There was no secret about it. And that night he had to wrestle like his three like greatest rivals, Timothy Thatcher, Eddie Edwards, and Drew Gulak. And in between those like it was like a round robin tournament, so all those guys had to wrestle each other. And in between those matches, they had other ones. I mean, some really good matches, include like like Ricochet wrestled at that show. And at the end, it was Eddie Edwards and Biff Busick for the last match, and it was like past midnight, and the crowd was exhausted. The guys were exhausted because they had all wrestled multiple times that night. And Busick comes out, and the crowd just keeps singing his theme song, which was a Pennywise song actually. And Eddie Edwards just starts beating the shit out of him. And Eddie Edwards, one of the things he does great is that like he really seems vicious. Like he puts you in a half crab and starts stomping on your face to really encourage you to tap out. And every time like Busick was in trouble, the crowd would just start singing the chorus to his theme song again. And it was so great and so emotional. You really felt like you were part of something. And when he won, it felt earned. And people were so like there were literally people crying at the show, which is what you want. That's like the point of going to any kind of artistic performance, any kind of creative endeavor. It's you want to feel emotion. You want to see people express emotion. And so that was great. I loved that. That was like a flash of the kind of ECW style. Like this is gonna be a moment. If you watch the when Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko had their last match in ECW, the crowd keeps chanting "Please don't go," and it's the same kind of thing. It's like this spontaneous show of genuine emotion, which was really great. That's my favorite recent match, or favorite recent show. Although honestly, just for the company, the Ring of Honor show that you and I went to with a bunch of our friends last year, Field of Honor, that was a lot of fun because we went with people who had never seen wrestling before, and it was fun to watch their reactions.
That was fun because half the people were there had never been to a wrestling show, and we had strategically placed the people who hadn't been to the wrestling shows on either end of you and I, so like we could explain what was going on.
Yep. Yeah.
So um, like I would be like in between matches. Like, okay, the next guy's coming out is gonna be Moose. You gotta do the Moose chant with everyone because
That's
everybody
right.
does it, and because of who I guess because of who I am, like the people who are telling this are not believing me. But they're like, no, nobody's gonna do that. I'm gonna look like an idiot, right? I'm like, no, everybody's gonna do it, and you have to do it too because it's fun. And then everyone comes out and everyone does the Moose chant. So like everybody does it, and then afterwards, like everybody's a Moose fan.
Yes. We also threw Okada
Oh yeah, we
bucks.
threw Okada bucks too. So when Okada came out, we uh we made it rain on everybody
We made it
around
rain.
us.
They had so much fun because they the people who had never been to wrestling shows before didn't understand how important the crowd is and like how much audience participation there is, especially like a Ring of Honor. That was one of their big super shows with a bunch of New Japan guys. So the people were amped, the crowd was super hyped. But like they didn't realize how interactive it is with like the crowd yelling stuff and throwing things and people getting really into it. So they liked that part of it. And it's fun to go to wrestling shows with people who are open minded and who've never been before.
Yeah, it's fun, especially if they don't know what to expect, or if they have like this idea in their head that is like totally different from what it actually is, because then like you you have the opportunity to blow somebody's mind.
Yeah, because I think they came in expecting one thing, and you see like Ring of Honor and New Japan. If you've never seen wrestling before, your mind is blown. Like you just don't, they're expecting some kind of like big bodybuilder steroid fest, and they got something totally different. Like there was no way to prepare people for cheeseburger.
Yeah, can't prepare anyone for cheeseburger, and like this is like right. Field of Honor, I think, was might have been the first time that they used his ring entrance. Um, because like remember those cheeseburger ring entrances? Just like
It was
it's just
amazing.
like various pictures of cheeseburgers being cycled
And
through.
then occasionally and occasionally his face superimposed over them. It was incredible.
It's so great, and and now like everybody loves cheeseburger. It's the kind of thing where it's the stupidest thing. It's the stupidest gimmick, but like everybody is into it. Like um Ben G, who is like a listener to this show, he was posting pictures on Facebook of he went to see Ring of Honor with his daughter, and like she's I don't know maybe she's 12, and proudly displaying her cheeseburger T-shirt.
Yes.
Great, you can't see like everybody loves cheeseburger. That's the thing. Like he's not a big guy or anything. He's not like the greatest wrestler. He's just got that thing, cheeseburger. Um, it's great. So like I can imagine a lot of wrestling shows being really memorable for some various reasons, and like when we were the loud sign guys. Those are always good memories. Like it's weird. It's actually weird because like I don't. Did you know those guys before wrestling shows? Because like
No.
I knew them from 158.
That's right. Yeah, they were in kind of like metalcore
Yeah.
bands, right?
So like they were in the same kind of like hardcore punk scene as we were, and like one of those dudes was like dating somebody I was working with, and I was like, oh yeah, we started talking through that because like we hadn't ever really talked when we went to shows, but we knew each other, like we knew of each other. We hadn't really talked, and then like after we started seeing each other after that, like we started talking, and then we're like figured out we both liked wrestling, and then we went to started going to wrestling shows together. It's kind of a lucky coincidence, but that was really fun because you have like 7 or 8 people there, and it's like you're the loudest people in the room. You basically control the entire crowd.
Right. Yeah. And a small indie show, not one of the, like when we'd go see ECW, we'd see them in Danbury or something, like in a big room with 3,000 people or whatever. But if you're at a small indie show and there's like 120 people there and you're there with like the nine loud guys, everyone just follows your lead.
Yeah, basically you control the crowd essentially. So like basically it's a really interesting dynamic because you can basically decide who is over and who is not. Um,
It's true, 100%.
so I mean there was like people that they always booked, and in this is like New England Championship Wrestling that we were going to see like 20 years ago or so, when it was like only 50 people would come and there was no big names.
Yep.
And like you'd go and like we people were over because of their theme songs, because like we
Yeah.
like there was a guy who came out to Danzig's Mother, and everybody would sing along because like the loud guys would all sing along, so it seemed like everyone would sing along. And then like that guy always came back because like he was over because of his theme song. He wasn't even that really good of a wrestler.
No, he wasn't. Yeah, and that was back when it was so rare for anyone to use like anything vaguely punk as an entrance theme song. So we all loved it because we all knew Danzig. But I mean, it's fine to say, but like God, as late as the late '90s, like wrestling's take on pop culture was so far behind the times. It kind of is still now because like every wrestler who's like a quote unquote punk wrestler, it's like 1981. It's all just like mohawks and like back patches, and it's kind of goofy. But yeah, and I still see that dynamic when I go to Northeast shows at the Bethany Town Hall, aka the Northeast Arena. Um, I get it's close to 200 as a sellout, maybe 180, and they get close to that, like 150, I guess. And there's a group of guys. They're really loud and they're really organized, and they determine who's over. Like they liked, and again they liked singing along to this one wrestler TK Orion because he comes out to the Karate Kid, the best around. So they like singing along to that. So like he's insanely over in Northeast Wrestling, and he's like a heel everywhere else. But he's so like they've made him basically because they cheer whenever he comes out. He's like the good guy.
Yeah, that's that happens. That's how indie wrestling works. It's really interesting that way. Um, I don't know. Tom, has the Sanctuary of Our Genesis been displayed on TV yet? Is that
No, it's right now we have a mixed tag. It's the Bromans and Raquel against Decay.
Decay?
Um, a lot of people were saying they didn't think because this is like Raquel from TNA, aka Gabby Castrovinci. I'm sorry. That's like her first sort of match. People were saying that they don't think she's tough enough. I've seen her wrestle in person. Also, she was wrestling in some indie in Florida, and like so she was like a tough enough contestant last year and decided to pursue wrestling. And some of the women wrestlers at this promotion in Miami, I think, were not keen on that. They thought she was kind of jumping in line or whatever. So like as they say, they took liberties, and they actually sort of like they were handing out potatoes in the ring, and broke like knocked one of her teeth out or something. And she finished the match and met fans afterwards, and then went to the doctor, the emergency room or walk-in clinic or whatever, which is a very Harley Race thing to do. So I'm not skeptical about her chances in this match. I think she'll do fine. But yeah, right now it's just mixed tag.
Oh, mixed tag.
But they keep showing teasers for the final deletion, and people are posting screenshots, and they're absolutely incredible.
Oh,
There's apparently there's one scene where like a drone flies into Jeff Hardy's house and it projects a hologram of Matt Hardy.
oh man,
It's just it's amazing.
that sounds great.
Well, yeah, so we'll leave you, and hopefully by the time you hear this you will have watched the final deletion and will have made up your minds. Um but if for some reason you've listened to this podcast and you find yourself desperate for more wrestling content from us, you have a couple of options. You can go to closetofanxiety.tumblr.com. You can go to hawkageandjoe.tumblr.com. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at TJ Breen. You can find Joe on Twitter. He's at xcornmuffinx. That's it for wrestling. Or I mean, I guess you could run into one of us at a show, a DDT Pro show in Tokyo in Joe's case, and a Beyond Wrestling show in Providence in my case. Other than that, you're limited to this podcast, Twitter, and Tumblr.
That's about it. If you can't get enough of us though, for some reason, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel and listen to my non-wrestling content. But I don't know why you would do that.
I think you should do it. It's compelling hashtag content.
Hashtag content, yeah. Or you can check out our non-wrestling content at orfordparishbooks.com.
Yes, there's no wrestling at Orphan Parish Books, but if you like horror and creepy things, it might be right up your alley.
But also, one last thing before we go, we have to announce we're doing something special for our 50th episode.
Thank you for reminding me. So our 50th episode, the Big 5-0, is going to, by chance, is going to take place on the same night that they're doing the draft for the brand split in WWE. So what we're going to do, we're going to test this beforehand to make sure we can do it. We're going to do our first ever live Trans-Pacific podcast, and we're going to be watching and commenting on the brand split draft in real time.
So this is going to be, we're going to do this through Google Hangouts. So if you are listening to this but you don't have a YouTube account, but for some reason you want to come in and chat with us along while we're doing the live commentary, you can do that. I encourage that because, there's a lot of commercials, and what are we going to talk about in between? So, yeah, we need, we'd like for everyone to come in, chat with us when we do the live episode. It will be at the same time as SmackDown, and it'll end when we get too tired to do it anymore.
Yes, but this is going to be a first for us. We would love your participation to make it a big success. Otherwise, it's just Joe and I talking to each other, which is fine. We do that a lot, but it'd be more fun if you joined.
Yeah. So feel free to, once it goes up, I'll put up a notification on YouTube the day before, so everyone gets the timing correct. You can see it, and then we'll go live probably before SmackDown starts, so we can make sure everything's working correctly. And then we'll do the live show. You guys can join in, ask questions. Don't ask too many questions. Actually, ask all the questions you want to Tom. I've already answered so many questions recently that I guess wrestling questions I haven't answered too many of those. So if you want to ask wrestling questions, but Tom has not answered any questions. So pepper him with questions, and
I can take it. Ask me anything.
All right. So there's an invitation direct from Tom to pepper him with all types of personal questions that will make him really uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't care.
So yeah, but keep that in mind.
That'll be coming right. That'll be right off a huge weekend of wrestling for me. I'm going to be seeing 3 shows in 2 days right before that SmackDown draft. So my first live Evolve show. So if you have any questions, it's like, I mean, whatever.
When is SummerSlam weekend? Is that
SummerSlam weekend is the 20th. SummerSlam itself is the 21st
of this month.
Of
August. Okay.
And the NXT show, which will undoubtedly be better than SummerSlam, is the 20th.
When is Battleground?
Battleground is, I think it's the one weekend this month that I don't have live wrestling to go to. I could be wrong about that, though. July 24. Oh. So Battleground is July 24. It'll be after the brand split. And yeah, I don't have any wrestling shows that day. So I'll be able to watch Battleground live.
Great. So All right, we got a live show, and it'll be the live special 50th episode, and also the live commentary on the brand split draft. We'll get all the breaking news as it happens. It's the first for us.
It's going to be pretty amazing. So we hope you'll join, and we'll do. I don't know. We'll remind you before that happens. You'll be peppered with reminders before July 19 about our first live podcast or Slamcast.
Slamcast. You gotta remember, we just changed it to a Slamcast this episode. So,
That's right. Yeah, so it'll be our first live Slamcast.
um,
Um, all right. I think that's all I have. You have anything
nope,
else?
that's it. That was the big announcement. That we should I should give credit to um, YouTube user Sega of My House who suggested that we do something special for the 50th episode because otherwise we wouldn't have thought about it. But it just happens to coincide with the draft, so it worked out perfectly. So live episode. Thanks to you. But that's it. That's all we got for this week. So I guess we will see you next time.
See you next week, everybody.